Tonight's guest lecturer is Ivan Chermayeff, and he was born in London, 1932. He has studied at Harvard, the Institute of Design in Chicago, and he graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Yale School of Art and Architecture. I guess when I first started to read this resume of the things that he has belonged to and the things that he's contributed to, it became really impressive and almost awesome because it's impossible to list all these things. But I will say that he has been very closely involved with architects from his original work that started in 1957. His name was Brown, John, Chermayeff, and Geismar. And in 1963, a firm was consolidated called the Cambridge 7 Associates. And through that particular involvement, he has worked with Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, I.M. Pei, Ed Barnes, and several other really dynamic architects. So I think that he has a real appreciation for the art. He has, throughout his career, been involved with societies that are destined to promote the study of art and architecture. And I think that his involvement still with such organizations as the Yale Council Committee on Art and Architecture, and the fact that the Harvard University Board of Overseers Committee is still asked him to become a part of that, shows that he is continuously involved with architecture and art together. Tonight, his topic is going to be a little bit of his background in architecture. And I think that the fact that he has written a book called Observations on American Architecture testifies the fact that he is an accomplished personage as far as being able to understand what we're going through as architects, and also to relate to graphic quality and the tremendous spirit that he has captured within his work himself. So at this time, I'd like for you to welcome Ivan Chermayeff. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, students and faculty here. It says on the program that I was supposed to talk about graphics and architecture. It may or may not come to pass in that way. I'm not really sure. I was warned, if it goes in there, it's unfinished. Is that better? What I thought I'd do when Martin Roseman asked me if I'd come out here and chat with you all, that I warned him that I would not give a formal lecture, partly because I really don't know how, and partly because if I did, I don't think I want to do it either. I'd much rather give a very digressive, loose talk about the things that are really worrying me and that I'm concerned about, in the hopes that, out of this scrambled mess, there might be some things that touch on some of the kind of problems you're facing or will face or whatever. I just find it more interesting to tell you about my real problems and difficulties with communications in environments, in architecture perhaps, but not necessarily, because they're maybe if I do both at once here. Fundamentally, the longer I'm involved with communications problems with various other disciplines, the more basically confused I've become. I'm really much less sure about what design is than now than I was when I started. And I'm one of those people that sort of had in mind that I wanted to be a designer when I was about 16 or 17 years old. And I left Harvard quite early by plan, and halfway through my undergraduate studies, because Harvard didn't know what design was at all. There was no Carpenter Center. There was none of those things there at all. There was a very academic art history department. No painting, no nothing. So I spent 2 years there with the understanding in the first place that I was going to leave, which was absolutely sensational. The dean there allowed me to take courses by professors regardless of subject matter, which is an excellent way of learning about anything. Is to be, what that means is to be kept awake is what it's all about. It was for me, and it worked rather well. And I spent 2 years at the Institute of Design in Chicago, and then went on to Yale, as they told you, and then I spent 7 hard years recovering from this educational process. I can't say that I've completely recovered, but I certainly know that whatever I do know did not come from studying design in school. Whatever I do know comes from a lot of, mainly hard work, a lot of hard work, enjoyable, but hard, because there are not rules and goals that are clearly definable along the way, and that makes it particularly hard. Not to mention that the years of 14-hour days, which you all seem to put in too. I'm glad to hear this evening from before. It's a very hard-working group. I believe in that as one way of getting to an attitude in your own mind that you can live with it and therefore be useful about. What I'm going to show you is nothing much of the work that my colleagues and staff do in New York and Cambridge in relation to graphics and architecture, because that means an awful lot of things to do with signing and stuff like that. Very boring stuff. I couldn't bear to look at those slides myself, and I see no reason to force them off on you. All those things are important, and they take up a tremendous amount of time. The office is concerned with servicing other people the way most design offices are. Some are there to serve themselves, and they're usually the worst of the lot. But those who are involved with other people are working on other people's problems. And most of the time it's very boring work. Because what finally happens, and I've been working on it now for 22 years, I guess, and had my own office for 20. And what it finally comes down to, that the interesting, the important part of design is helping contribute to the basic description of what the job is in the first place. It's in other words, becoming a part of the process of defining problems, part of the process of asking questions instead of giving out answers. Questions are very interesting. Answers are in these rather mundane areas like moving people to the men and women's rooms are really boring. It's a good part of what this work is all about. So I'm not going to show you any of those things, and you can be, you may not be grateful after you see what I am going to show you, but I think you're better off. I hope so. So things that I brought along are those sort of rather more personal things that I've been involved in. And I've picked up mostly things that have to do with environmental things, with architectural situations, if you take architecture at least in its broadest sense, and things that are fun and things that are somehow inexplicable, and when I look back at them, I wonder how I ever got away with it, how anybody allowed some of the things that I've been involved in to happen. And it's answers to those kind of questions that I'm intended to chat about as we go through some of these projects. But before that too, I wanted to sort of quickly go through some slides which are purely graphic things, that graphic in print, posters and booklets and things of that sort, not for the purpose of the problems that they represent, but so much as to let you have a sense of my own more handwriting, if you like, my own, because I steal from myself a lot. I spend a good part of my effort swiping my own thing. I have a pair of scissors I've had for 20 years, and if I can get my hands on them and can keep them from being borrowed by the people, they become an extension, and I sort of lean on what I know comes out of it. There's a certain amount of that, and I want to be honest with you and show you what some of those things are. And then you will begin to see how they develop and find their way into walls and spaces that where they may prove useful, or at least they happen. So with that confusing sort of introduction, Norman, if we can have the house lights. So this is just a quick series of things. This was a conference, as it says, in Washington under that guy who's now playing golf out west. He was president at the time. And it was a whole series of monographs about various subjects and problems within this area. And what I'm showing you really is partly because I found them to be kind of friendly, partly because they sort of represent to me a sort of childish side of my own nature that I found to be extremely valuable, and which I've nurtured as best I can. Because I found it's very, very hard work to be very childish, and which means very straightforward, very direct, and very simple and simple-minded. This series of drawings, which I really did myself, I was tempted to have one of my daughters do the whole job, but it actually became too difficult. So I finally, I did the whole job with my left hand. Seriously, I did the whole thing that way. And then when I got to the spirit of it, I sat down and did it. The slide just didn't drop there. And after worrying about it for quite a while, I then did all of these things in one afternoon. They got attached to a lot of things besides these booklets that you're looking at. But see, underlying all of this work, the serious part of this job was not this fun kind of friendly, if you like, and childish expression by taking a symbol and then working it ad nauseum. The valuable part of what went on with this project was to design the typewriter paper for all the manuscripts, for all the secretaries, so that they could type all the manuscripts one way and they could be sent by the general printing office line for line. In other words, I have all the stationery or typing paper pre-printed with guidelines for page counts, and it saved just tens of thousands of dollars. And that was an accomplishment. The rest here is fluff. But if I showed you those diagrams or grids of our graphic design, you wouldn't be too interested in it. But just in passing, I'll tell you that was the important part, and not this. And these were all printed together at the same time. Is that as good a focus as we can get? No. You wouldn't believe that there were this many booklets. I edited out about a half a dozen turkeys. So this quickly, just to let you know what I'm involved in. I've been spending a lot of time lately with public broadcasting efforts of Mobile Oil, as they sponsor quite a few series of programs on the public broadcasting networks, mostly things that come through Boston, and my involvement is doing things like posters and news releases and introductions of these things on television. So there's some film things involved in it too. But what I'm showing you is kind of obsessional kind of handwriting that I have in my work. And that's kind of interesting. I drew that crown with a Sobo bottle, and then sprinkled all the stars on it. And when it dried, the ones that flew away were the ones that weren't in the drawing. And a lot of this is stealing from 6 people, and the whole idea of collage and of bringing different kinds of images together into a single image is something that I've been involved in quite a bit, that you'll see. This, believe it or not, is another thing that I've spent a lot of time doing, which is thinking about it, just sort of collecting things and then reusing that collection in some way. This is a poster, as you can see, for the Museum of Immigration, which is the federal government. For the federal government to have done this poster, I find it so extraordinary. They have 16 flesh-colored statues of liberty and get it through the feds. There must have been all drunk that day. There's those scissors I was talking to you about. I've done an awful lot of just illustration work, cutting things out with bits of paper. And these are images that are reasonably recognizable, or at least come from some. Here's another government poster for the Department of the Interior, National Park Service. This is a poster, it's called Doves of All Nations, and it was in opposition to the Vietnam War. It was a group that wanted something that they could sell to raise funds to send more telegrams to congressmen. And you can see, now I'm beginning to show you that some of these cut paper things that I have become involved in. And again, the interesting thing here, though, is for me, is not these sort of simple poster-like graphics, but the cages that are also designed, and these stools for the kids, and all kinds of stuff that were part of the St. Louis Children's Zoo. Again, the real work was designing a really good transportable cage for small animals that could be easily cleanable and that all kinds of technical problems, not be torn apart by either the children or the monkeys on the inside. And that was the most work. These panels were necessary to have as a unit that could very easily go on anywhere under these cages to protect these animals from, to give them a sense of privacy or sun protection or whatever. So they're just designed to hang on in any face of these cages at will. And there are a lot of them in storage, and they can use them or not as necessary. And there were just dozens and dozens of them that were there. And then, the same kind of language became part of other kinds of thoughts about graphics that could be in this environment. I spent a few days, maybe more, in the Bronx Children's Zoo and other children's zoos that I could find around. And one of the things I discovered about children's zoos is that it's the relationship of fathers to the children, not mothers, but fathers to the children, is very important. There's a tremendous amount of photograph taking of the kids in the zoo. So this was setting up that whole Coney Island thing. All those holes there are for kids to put their heads through so their fathers can take pictures. And they do it. And it becomes very enjoyable, and there's lots of giggling and nonsense. And these are just some fiberglass panels in the pathways between one thing and another, the real animals. And then this extended further to large sort of mythical beasts, as I call them, that sort of gave some animation to this landscape, which I had didn't do. That was Guy Obata in St. Louis designed the grounds, and this became attached to it. It made use of other kinds of things. Here, this sort of Loch Ness monster is in a kind of stream, and there are ducks and things that swim along. And the eye is stolen from a gas station kind of thing that spins around in the wind. This whale it doesn't show it in the slide, but uses ordinary lawn sprinkling equipment. Every 30 seconds there's a spout that comes out the top. And those fish are on ball bearings, and they spin around from a circular lawn sprinkler that hits them, and then they spin around and frighten the ducks, I guess. And then there are some other animals, like this one again, it's a bad slide because it doesn't express what happens, but this is the sort of heating plant is underneath this mound. So all winter long, steam is coming up where the head is going in. So it was taking advantage of the fact that steam was there, in all the cold months of the year. And this is the drinking fountain. There were some other things that like that carried this sort of cut paper illustrations out into some kind of more three-dimensional environment. This is nothing new to any of us. I mean, we've all seen it, but I still think it was just a valuable point, and I don't claim any originality about painting up industrial stuff around to make a landscape that you can't afford to do anything else with a little bit more interesting. In fact, it always is. You notice there's the white thing out in front of your building, which is nicer than both pieces of sculpture. And anybody who doesn't think so should, I hope, have some reasons. But this was just a wonderful client in Des Moines, Iowa, American Republic Insurance Company, and they just have a Skidmore, Owings and Merrill office building, and this is a building across the street that they look down on. So why not, if they can control it, why not do something with it? And this same kind of attitude of just picking things up along the way and making something new happen, collecting junk, if you like, and doing something with it, I've gotten myself involved with quite often. This is a very nice little pavilion that, or outside, a plaza outside, that Aldo Jurgala designed. And this stuff, I can't even tell you what it is, but it's lying around in Con Edison's yards. And there are all kinds of terrific things there that are out of use, and they were just rusting away, and I just had them all shipped up to Indian Point on the Hudson, and used them because they were part of Con Edison's language, and used them to write captions about what Con Edison was up to. That black sort of 30-foot piece there is thousands of plugs. Inside the building is a whole wall of outlets, and it's all a caption about the demands for consumption and energy in New York, and what kind of loads are taken on by households and so on. This is making these boxes, and this one obviously is stuffed with all the kinds of hard hats that these guys were, and it talks about how many people are out in the field, and over there are all dead used light bulbs, and that talks about the annual consumption of in residential homes in Indian Point or something like that. And this one is filled with used gloves. So they talk about the different kinds of workers that Con Edison has, and there's guys that go out in the middle of storms and put the wires back up and work terribly high voltage, and all, they turned out under examination they had something like 75 different kinds of pairs of gloves, and it's kind of interesting, and they wear out, so we just had to collect them for a year and then stuff them in a box, and it seemed like a good thing to do. This same attitude is really expressed here. Obviously it doesn't look like this is just saying about this is for the sad New York State Urban Development Corporation, which you may have read about. But their offices in New York needed to have their various parts described, and also to make interesting things kind of happen without spending any dough. So it was all he did was just take some standard square extrusion, aluminum extrusion, design a simple key slot out of another standard extrusion that could attach to the wall, and put these things all over the place. And laid them on the floor and grade painted them, attached some lettering to them if they were to define a space, or modulated them to make some kind of visual experience for people who were walking through these offices. And it turns out these two flagpoles that were there already and were the more difficult part. But it all began to, and perhaps the UDC thing was the first of a series of things that involved movement and a recognition of the fact that as people move, if you can then deal with that, then you don't have to make anything else move by electricity or wind or anything else. So this became intrigued with that notion. And it says Harper and Row, it's hard to read here, but if you're walking down the street, you get the whole of it without any trouble, or if you're going by in a car or taxi. And this same notion then gets back to my own paintings and my own sort of cut paper thing, but here was the same building in Des Moines where it's simply a recognition of a painting that's seen in three different elevations. You come down at it, you're in the middle of it, or you're coming up at it from below. And to design a painting that's that recognizes the environment in which it's sitting was what I was trying to do. They're a little larger than they look. They're acrylic on canvas, and they're 17 feet high, and there's one on one end of the building and one on the other. And these two stairwells. We also redesigned the building, reconverted this old building, and the first thing we did to make ultimate best use of the floor space was to take the two stair towers and throw them outside the building, which I think maybe wouldn't have been too bad an idea in the building we're in now. This is, again, taking advantage of moving. This is a General Fireproofing's showroom in Chicago, where this is their trademark, the GF trademark. It's plywood laminated onto stock plate glass doors, and then the part that's cut away was buried in a carpeted wall some 15 feet further on. So here becomes not just people moving, but making something that could be moved by visitors and the people on the floor. General Fireproofing is a furniture company, the desks and chairs, and you probably know all about them. And they have the showroom, the Merchandise Mart, the Pan Am Building, and various other major cities around the country and in Canada. And what I came to realize is that it's terribly boring to be a salesman on the floor in such a place. And it's also rather unnerving to walk in there, because you just sort of half the time want to look around, and you don't want to necessarily get it all involved. And this really came out of the notion of having something else to talk about. And so the president of GF allowed me to do this insane thing of 20 different ways to paint a cone, which is about as irrelevant as you could get, except that what happened was, and which was the idea, was that, somebody could come and say, what are all these cones? And then the guy said, our president, he's got this insane bunch of designers, I don't know what it's all about. Pretty soon they can get on to furniture if that's within the realm of possibility. And it turns out, too, that the cone form really is such that dominates the space when you walk in, but once you get down to looking at a specific chair, there's just there's not much in the way when you get to it. That same notion I carry to other illogical extremes, and this is in Georgetown, Canada, just outside Toronto, where these are dividers, again for general fireproofing, in 10,000 feet of showroom. They're movable walls, but what they are fins, just steel, 1/8-inch steel, just held there on pins. But what happens is the guys who work there can change them all day long. They push them around and mix one painting on the other side with a painting on this side. And the accidents were so much better than the design, which is a series of circles, that I never even put the original thing down. All that is when it was painted, is one big yellow circle and two little ones. But it was much better as an accident, so to move the pieces out of order, so that was done from the very first instance, and then, start mixing it in with the other side, or putting them horizontally instead of in a plane, and all kinds of interesting things happen with the pictures, and again, it distracts you from the furniture, and actually, it was my theory at least, that distracting from the so-called job at hand was really the best possible thing you could do. And the guys who work in these places evidently go along with this, not at first, but finally they think that seem to think that there's some point to it. This is another one. This is Elliot Noyes designed the showroom, and this is in New York, and there what I did was to make these large paintings, and they're on tracks in the ceiling, so they move. They also split in half, so they can be half a painting. And this one on the other side, they become very strong, colorful elements that give a very powerful graphic quality to what otherwise becomes, in a big furniture showroom, it's sort of a sea of furniture, which is rather off-putting. So these things work that way, and they just move up and down with it very easily. And there were 10 of them in the space. But you can see that graphically what I've done is to extend my own interest in cutting up little bits of paper, right? And within it's the same scissors, the exact same ones for the little birds and the down to the posters, as made these sort of paintings that I was concerned with in a painterly sense. Illusions of lines and planes as a purely painterly problem, and I happened to find an outlet for. Never did I discuss the aesthetics of this with anybody, but rather the function that they were going to perform in some kind of environment. This is an entirely different solution to the same kind of problem. This is IBM's data processing headquarters out in White Plains, New York. And it happens that there's this big space that you enter in one end, and then people go off to the right and left, but it also has a bridge running through the space, and the people who use it see the space from many different points of view during the day because of the way the traffic was designed. And what I was asked to do was to make for big paintings, what I did do was to take the entire space as a canvas and make these triangular forms that and just apply them directly to the wall, so that no matter where you are in this space, these elements come into new relationships, and it isn't a stagnant kind of situation. And they're movable too. One can rearrange them, not terribly easily, but it can be done. This is just purely graphic, but it's just a way of pointing out to you my own concern with movement in graphics. These happen to be two first-class menus for the inaugural flight of the 747. And it's just expressing in graphic terms what I was trying to do in spatial terms in some of the other slides. So this, again, begins to take other kinds of forms. This was a job sign, a temporary barricade for a big Skidmore, Owings and Merrill building on 57th Street. And it was simply recognizing that fact that, again, that people and cars move, and we can't afford to make the sign move, but if it looks like it's moving, then people are going to pay some kind of attention to it. So this is recognizing that the building is in mid-block between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. It is that from either end you can read these little fins that stick out. It's really taking 4x8 panels and cutting off 2 feet and turning the narrow piece out. So you can read the Solo Building Company, the guy who owned it and built the building, and you can read 9 West 57th Street when you're in dead elevation, and in between you get all kinds of wild abstractions going on, which are more interesting and make you hang around to get the middle and end messages, at no great cost. And it was kind of amusing in the Playboy Club actually came by and made a movie of this damn thing to show Hugh Hefner, so that they could have such thing in their building in Chicago opposite the Drake Hotel, which they did. Did for them with sort of broken up bunnies. And nice kind of painterly quality comes out of the accidental part of it. So now we're back to Des Moines. It's the same little building which we did over. We buried a rather unattractive building by putting a field of fins on it to give it some character. Painted them so that the building is seen in one color on the way to work and another color on the way home. And then it took those same fins, and on the wall facing the main office building, the Skidmore building, their cafeteria was on the 2nd floor, took those same fins and modulated and moved them around to take advantage of the path of the sun and make an exact kind of mural thing out of a component that we'd already designed for other purposes. Sort of about 80 feet long and changes quite radically with the seasons. make something happen, and otherwise what amounts to a back alley. Again, same building. This is the interior hallway. There, what I did was again concerned about the fact of people moving through these halls, and mostly not the same people, but visitors, and just devised a plan of taking all the walls, all of which were different lengths, and just marking off the quarter and halfway points, and then painting them differently, again, just as on the diagram, and handing it over to the painter on the job, who just did it the normal kind of way. This is, a more elaborate kind of painting altogether. This was a little bank that Edward Larrabee Barnes designed, where he wanted just to make something happen, and took this wall and went and carried the blue through the yellow and then folded it out onto this piece of sculpture or whatever you'd call it on the floor. And I can't figure out now what the justification for this was, but I know I must have had one at the time. But it's, again, lending a sense of character to it. This is a little fragment of the New England Aquarium, which Cambridge 7 office. My brother designed the building. What I did was make a mural of wave patterns in neon that reflect in the glass and the water around the building. And it's sort of the Ed Barnes thing sort of came out of this one in a less, a more arbitrary way. This is another Skidmore. There's a cafeteria for Philip Morris in Richmond, Virginia, and obviously it's a sign without words, a symbolic sign. What it is also is a place for everybody to comb their hair, which I discovered a lot of people like to do on their way into cafeterias. So it's sort of combining those two things into one. This is just some flags and banners for the Museum of Modern Art in New York, where I've been asked to design a symbol for the museum, and came to the conclusion that the last thing on earth they need really was a symbol. What they needed was a way of announcing that they have new shows and that something is happening, and in fact to decorate things that are not specific to a show. So this notion of squares, circles, and triangles, banners carried itself out onto shopping bags and salt and pepper packages on the cafeteria tables, that kind of thing. Now, again, this is a combination of things. This is just an annual report cover from Philip Morris. Done a lot of graphic work for them and do that kind of thing in our office fairly regularly, annual reports and books. But this was taking their product names and typography, recognizing that any child can recognize a little fragment of Marlboro or Miller's very easily, and using that as a graphic device. You can see that it sort of comes out of the cut scissors and all those other obsessions of mine.
and it was carried out in this annual report. But you see the lengths to which these things can go. This is a tower that stands outside this factory on the 4-lane highway outside of Richmond. And this tower it's 150 feet high and has lights up on the top of it to keep airplanes from banging into it. It costs a fortune. And really what it is fragments of their major brands. There are no other signs around the place. There's nowhere that you can see the whole of anything, unless you walk around it or something. But if you're driving one way or the other, you just see little bits and pieces, and it marks their presence. And a year ago again, you see, carrying that kind of feeling that was in that big tower into two very large tapestries. They were woven in France, and it took a year to do it. They're 40 feet long. There are two of them, and they sort of grow out of their colors and the sensible triangles, but mostly, as you can see, they grow out of the stuff that I do rather than the stuff that Philip Morris does. But not arbitrarily. They really are there because the entrance to this building needed and demanded some very strong, colorful kinds of activity, a little warmth against a lot of hard glass and stone surfaces, and that was the reason to do it. The fact that the handwriting is really, personal and private to me, with some small tentacles of connection to Philip Morris. And it's not that they didn't know that they were speculating a little bit, because there was never any dishonesty about that. So this is a poster that actually Ricky Werman started it with his concerns about getting students, young kids in school to look at their own cities, a series of posters to explain various aspects of the city. I just picked airports as a place to learn from. And this, apart from, I think it's probably the only place it's hanging in the world is upstairs outside your dean's office. But I brought it because it doesn't quite look like a poster, and it's also part of the whole idea of collecting things that I've always found interesting, and it's followed through in a series of mural-sized things that are a different kind of handwriting done for IBM again, but for their World Trade headquarters, a new building that Ed Barnes designed. And these are those same luggage tags that you saw before in the poster, only they're looser and organized in a different way. And there just collected all kinds of things from all over the world, all over the world where IBM is, which is about 115 countries. And these are taking the flags that they sell at the UN gift shop and stuffing them in the little boxes. And it comes out quite differently. This is one of the women's lounges where we just took ribbons and they came from all over from all over the world, from Scandinavia and the Far East and so on, and just bought a yard of everything and stuffed it all into little boxes. And I did that with toys and with a full gamut of stuff. There are 18 of these things. The cafeteria is coffee and beans and herbs and spices, and other places it's candy, and it's all in the accountant's department. It's used money that's out of circulation. The export division, this all has to do with ropes and twines which come from all over the place. And one of the administrators was very fond of the sea and shells, and may want to just shells them all over the world for his offices, and so on. And this is, I don't have a long slide of it, but there are 380 of these little frames filled with stamps, each one sorted according to color. It took one girl 8 solid weeks to sort the stamps. And it came out to be 82,000. And but it makes one hell of a wall. It's really very nice. And then this is the same. That's the same building that had that sort of moving sign, Solo Building Company, 9 West 57th Street. This is the 9, and it became Gordon Bunshaft designed this building, which is kind of slopes down and basically is pretty mean about the street, and it's got a lot of travertine at the ground level. And it's a pretty chilly building in my view, the job really was to find a nice way of writing a nice kind of 9 on that travertine fascia you see in the middle that runs down the building. And it just seemed like not the most exciting thing one could do. And it finally came up with this sort of piece of minimal sculpture, if you like, this 9 that's 10 feet high and weighs 6,000 pounds, and it's sort of out on the sidewalk in everybody's way, and it's even on city property. And the owner has to pay, I think it's $500 a year rent for the 1 foot that this is band of space that's underneath this 9, which looks as though it sort of slipped off the building and onto the sidewalk. But it became another kind of way of looking at graphics and mixing it back up with sculpture and in some kind of way that involves people on the street a little bit more than a conventional attitude would be. As I've been talking all along too about stealing from myself, and you can see some of the origins of where some of these things came from. This led to this. This is Channel 2, it's the public service television channel in Boston, and this sort of drives around and has loudspeakers and tells people about what's going on and helps raise funds and that kind of thing. But out of that 3-dimensional 9 came this 3-dimensional 2, which is used in their advertising and as their sort of trademark of WGBH Boston. I think that's really all that I brought along to show. I'd be delighted to answer any questions or talk about anything anybody would like to. Lights. That's in their lives or generally. If we could have the house lights. No questions at all? Yes, sir. Oh, no, I wasn't called in to do that at all. In fact, That's my own view of what the problem was. If I described the problem that way, as what was needed graphically there, as I did to you, if I said that to Bunshaft, he would be, let's say, angry, and he would throw me out of the office permanently, or probably. I still think it's true what I say about the building, and that it needed that. And I think the moment it came, was presented to the owner and to Bunshaft as a solution, its contrast to the building, the humorousness of it, really, and it does have some in its own way, if you, perhaps not from that slide, but when you see this whole 50-story building with this black glass and this travertine sloping down the street, and there's this red object sitting there on the sidewalk, they are very connected in a kind of animated fashion. And it obviously, when you saw it in model form or see it now, it does in fact help the building, as well as create some conversation, as well as identify the place. But no, I was not asked to save anything. That's only a certain arrogance on my own part to describe it that way.
I'd like to say that there will be coffee and cookies served in the lobby, compliments of the student chapter, and also I'd like to invite the faculty and the guests of the CAP and all of those members of the student chapter to come to a small reception and a wrap session so that we might be able to, again, discuss some of these issues that were sort of left up in the air.